The massive alien ships appeared without warning. One moment Earth's skies were empty. The next, 12 crystal vessels hung in orbit like frozen tears. Captain Tay Park watched from the Seoul Command Center as global defense systems went offline. Not from attack, the aliens had simply switched them off. "We need to talk," came the transmission in perfect Korean. "We are the Galactic Hegemony." Within hours, leaders from every nation gathered. The aliens chose a wheat field in neutral Switzerland for first contact. Tay stood in the security detail, hand never far from his weapon, as the alien delegation emerged. They were tall beings with translucent bodies that caught the sunlight, sending rainbow patterns across the grass. Their leader stepped forward, addressing the assembled humans directly. "We have observed your species for 200 years, it said. "We represent 342 advanced civilizations. We are here to evaluate Earth for membership." Hope spread across the planet. Schools closed. People celebrated in the streets. Humanity was not alone, and their new neighbors possessed wonders beyond imagination. Medical technology that could end disease. Energy systems that would solve climate change. Faster than light travel. For 3 weeks, the aliens studied humanity. They took samples, conducted interviews, and reviewed history. Tay was among those questioned. "You fought in 3 conflicts," the alien said, its voice neither male nor female. "Yes," Tay answered, "to protect my people." "And you would do so, again?" Without hesitation. The alien made a chiming sound that might have been disappointment. On the 23rd day, the hegemony delivered their verdict. President Song welcomed them to the United Nations Assembly, where every nation had gathered to hear the expected invitation to join the galactic community. The alien speaker stood before the microphone, crystal body glinting under the lights. "Humanity exhibits dangerous cognitive patterns," it announced. "Your neural architecture prioritizes competition over cooperation. You retain primitive threat responses that lead to violence. Your social structures focus on individual achievement rather than collective harmony." Confused murmurs filled the hall. This wasn't going as expected. The Hegemony Council has reached its decision. Earth is classified as a quarantine world. No contact, no trade, no technology exchange, no cultural integration. President Song stepped forward. "There must be some mistake. We've made great progress as a species. We can learn." "The decision is final," the alien interrupted. "A protective blockade will ensure compliance." Within days, more alien ships arrived. They positioned themselves in a perfect sphere around Earth, creating an impenetrable barrier. All satellite communications beyond low Earth orbit ceased. The International Space Station was forced to return. 3 deep space missions trying to leave the solar system disappeared. Earth was trapped. In his apartment overlooking the Han River, Tay watched the news grow increasingly desperate. Riots broke out in major cities. Food prices soared as trade routes shifted. Nations blamed each other. For a terrible week, nuclear war seemed possible until cooler heads prevailed. 2 months after the quarantine began, Tay received a message from President Song's office. A secret meeting was being convened. The underground facility beneath the Blue House was packed with military officers, scientists, and government officials from around the world. "We cannot accept this prison," President Song said. "The hegemony believes us too violent, too unstable to join their perfect society. Perhaps they're right about our history, but they're wrong about our future." Dr. Eun Han stepped forward. The physicist looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. "We've been studying debris from a hegemony scout ship that crashed in the Arctic last year," she explained. "Their technology is advanced, but not incomprehensible. We believe we can reverse engineer several key systems." Admiral Dae-Yoon, head of global security, stood next. "The hegemony expects us to give up, to turn inward, perhaps even destroy ourselves. They've done this before to other species they deemed evolutionarily unsuitable. We've detected signals suggesting Earth isn't the only quarantined world." President Song looked at each person in the room. "Today we form the Terran Coalition. One government, one purpose, to break the quarantine and claim our place in the galaxy." "How?" someone asked. "Their ships control our orbit." President Song's face hardened. "We adapt. We prepare. We find allies among other rejected species, and when we're ready, we fight. Tay felt something stir inside him. Pride, determination. The aliens had judged humanity too dangerous to join their peace. Perhaps they were right to fear what humans might do when cornered. 8 years passed since the quarantine began. On the surface, Earth appeared to have accepted its fate. The hegemony blockade remained in place, their crystal ships unmoved in their perfect sphere around the planet. But deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, humanity had other plans. Dr. Yoon Han wiped sweat from her forehead as she made the final adjustments to the prototype. The room was silent except for the low hum of the machine. 20 of Earth's best scientists watched, barely breathing. Stealth Drive Test 47, Yoon announced, pressing the activation sequence. The small metal sphere in the testing chamber shimmered and seemed to fold inward. Then it disappeared. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3. The sphere reappeared. Stealth field held for 3.2 seconds, reported her assistant. No detectable energy signature. For the first time in years, Yoon smiled. It works. The Phantom Project had begun 3 years after the quarantine. While the public rebuilt their lives around the new reality of Earth's isolation, the Terran Coalition worked in secret. They gathered alien technology, debris from damaged hegemony ships, fragments of communication systems, anything they could study. Progress was slow until the breakthrough, a way to bend space that created a pocket of nothingness. A ship inside? This field would be invisible to hegemony sensors. Admiral Dae Yoon entered the lab, his face serious as always. Will it work on a full-sized ship? Yes, Yoon said. But we need more rare Earth elements than we currently have. That's why I'm here. Dae handed her a tablet. We're going mining. The plan was simple but dangerous. A small team would slip through the blockade using the prototype stealth drive. They would mine asteroids beyond Earth's orbit, gathering materials the hegemony had cut off. Captain Tae Park was chosen to lead the mission. His ship, hardly more than an oversized shuttle with the stealth drive attached, waited in the underwater hangar. If they detect us, we're dead, said his pilot, Jin Soo. Then they won't detect us, Tae replied. The mission launched at midnight. As their ship approached the blockade, Yoon's voice came through the radio. Activating stealth drive in 3, 2, 1. The world outside their viewports blurred. A strange silence fell over the ship. They were now inside the stealth field. Tae held his breath as they passed the first hegemony vessel. It was massive up close, at least 20 times larger than their small ship. Its crystal surface caught the sunlight, breaking it into thousands of colors. No alarm sounded. No weapons fired. They were through. Field holding at 89%. Jin reported. We have 30 minutes before we need to drop it. The asteroid belt beyond Mars was rich with the materials they needed. The team worked quickly, using robotic miners to gather ore. As they prepared to return, Jin spotted something strange. Captain, there's a ship approaching. Not hegemony design. The vessel was organic-looking, with curved lines and a reddish hull. It moved cautiously, clearly aware of the human ship. They've seen us, Jin whispered. Impossible. The stealth field. Is something we can see through? Came a voice over their communication system. Just as you can see through ours. The alien vessel shimmered, revealing a much larger ship than first appeared. We are Vril, the voice continued. Like you, we are unwanted. The Vril, they learned, had been quarantined for 300 years. They had evolved on a high-gravity world, giving them squat, powerful bodies with forearms and tough reddish skin. Their civilization had developed in isolation until they discovered space travel and encountered the hegemony. They judged us too aggressive, explained the Vril commander, Ko Rin, too independent-minded. Back on Earth, in the secure chamber, beneath the Pacific, the Vril ambassador met with the coalition leadership. You are not alone in your fight, Ko Rin told them. There are 7 quarantined species who have made contact with each other. We call ourselves the Outcast Alliance. President Song leaned forward. What exactly do you propose? The hegemony believes itself morally superior. They see species like ours as evolutionary dead ends. But together, we have something they lack, the drive to survive against all odds. Admiral Day studied the star charts the Vril provided. These show weaknesses in the hegemony defense network. Yes, Corin confirmed. We've been gathering intelligence for centuries, but we lacked something you humans seem to have in abundance. The willingness to strike first. That night, as the coalition leaders discussed the alliance, Dr. Eun-han presented her latest creation. The stealth drive was just the beginning, she said, displaying holographic plans for a new vessel. This is Defiance. With Vril technology integrated with ours, it can slip through any hegemony detection grid. Tay looked at the ship design with growing hope. How many can we build? Enough, Admiral Day said firmly. Enough to show the galaxy that turning its back on humanity was the biggest mistake the hegemony ever made. Commander Ji-ho felt his heart race as the Defiance slipped silently through the hegemony blockade. The stealth system hummed softly, creating the pocket of non-space that made the ship invisible to alien sensors. 5 other vessels followed in tight formation, each carrying elite soldiers of the newly formed Terran Special Forces. Blockade. Clear, reported Lieutenant Min Lee from the navigation station. No sign of detection. Ji-ho allowed himself a small smile. After 3 years of preparation, Operation Defiance was finally underway. 6 human ships were now beyond the quarantine for the first time, not just to gather resources, but to establish humanity's first outpost beyond Earth. Set course for the Epsilon system, Ji-ho ordered. Maximum stealth field integrity. The journey took 12 days. Epsilon was an unremarkable star with 7 planets, all uninhabited according to Vril intelligence. Its only distinction was an abandoned hegemony monitoring station, their target. Approaching Epsilon 4, Min announced. Scanning for activity. The rocky planet loomed ahead, its surface gray and dusty. In orbit hung the hegemony station, a crystalline structure that resembled a snowflake rotating slowly. Life signs? Ji-ho asked. None detected. Station appears powered down. Landing teams deployed to the surface while Ji-ho led a squad to the station. Using Vril access codes, they entered without triggering alarms. The interior was designed for beings much taller than humans, with high ceilings and elongated doorways. Central data core should be 2 levels up, said tech specialist Sue Ree, consulting her tablet. If it's intact, we can download the entire hegemony network for this sector. The team moved cautiously through the abandoned station. Dust covered every surface, suggesting it had been empty for decades. Why would they abandon a perfectly good monitoring station? Lieutenant Min wondered aloud. We'll find out soon enough, Ji-ho replied. The data core was still operational, running on minimal power. Sue reconnected her equipment and began the download. This will take about 20 minutes, she said. There's a lot more data than we expected. As the download progressed, Ji-ho explored nearby rooms. In what appeared to be a command center, he found something disturbing. A holographic display showing hundreds of solar systems, each marked with a status code. Sue, what do these classifications mean? He called. She stepped over and frowned at the display. Let me cross-reference with what we've downloaded so far. After a moment, her face paled. Commander, these are quarantine designations, not just Earth, hundreds of worlds. Ji-ho felt cold dread settle in his stomach. How many? At least 300 systems. Some are labeled contained like Earth. Others, she swallowed hard. Others are marked sterilized. The download completed, and the team returned to the Defiance. As they analyzed the data, a grim picture emerged. The hegemony had been isolating species for thousands of years. Those who attempted to break quarantine were first warned, then punished, and finally, if they persisted, their planets were rendered uninhabitable. They call it evolutionary guidance, Sue explained, reading from the translated files. The hegemony believes it's their duty to ensure only certain types of civilization spread through the galaxy. And they get to decide who lives and dies? Lieutenant Min asked, anger in her voice. They've been doing it for over 10,000 years, Sue continued. Any species deemed too aggressive, too unpredictable, or too human-like, is considered a threat to galactic harmony. Jiho studied the star charts they'd recovered. What about these transmission logs? Can you decode them? Sue worked for hours before looking up with horror. Commander, there's a communication about Earth from 3 months ago. The sterilization fleet has been authorized. They're coming to wipe out humanity. The command team gathered to assess their options. The data showed the sterilization fleet would arrive in 11 months. Not enough time to build defenses strong enough to protect Earth. We need to warn the coalition, Lieutenant Min urged. We will, Jiho said. But first, we have an opportunity. He pointed to a location on the star chart, a hegemony communications hub that coordinated blockade ships throughout the sector. If we take this out, it could disrupt their quarantine operations across 20 systems. Enough for the outcast. Alliance to mobilize. It's heavily defended, warned Sue. But not against ships they can't see, Jiho countered. We have surprise on our side. The plan formed quickly. 3 ships would return to Earth with the critical intelligence about the coming sterilization fleet. The Defiance and 2 other vessels would strike the communications hub. As they approached the target, Jiho addressed his crew. Today, we stop hiding. Today we show the hegemony that humanity will not quietly await extinction. He paused, looking at each face on the bridge. They quarantined us because they feared what we might become. Let's show them they were right to be afraid. The Defiance dropped its stealth field as it came into range of the communications hub. For a brief moment, confusion reigned among the hegemony defenders. All weapons, fire, Jiho ordered. Humanity's first strike against the hegemony had begun. There would be no turning back. Admiral Sun Kang stood on the bridge of the Vengeance watching the battle unfold through the main view screen. The human fleet had grown from 6 small ships to over 50 vessels in just 7 months. Many were converted mining ships fitted with weapons. Others were purpose-built war vessels constructed in secret lunar shipyards. Hegemony cruiser coming about, reported her tactical officer. They're targeting our flank. Activate pulse disruptors, Sun ordered calmly. Phantom Squadron, move to intercept. The human ships moved with unpredictable patterns that confounded hegemony tracking systems. Dr. Yunhan's latest invention, the pulse disruptor, temporarily blinded enemy sensors, creating moments of confusion that human pilots exploited ruthlessly. This was the 4th major engagement since Commander Jiho's strike on the communications hub. That successful attack had created a cascade of opportunities for the growing Outcast Alliance. Alliance vessels report all targets neutralized in Sector 7, said Communications Officer Bin Lee. The Vril flagship requests permission to begin evacuation of their people from the prison moon. Sun nodded. Tell them they have 2 hours before we must withdraw. The battle for Proxima Station was their largest operation yet. Not just a military target, but a rescue mission. The hegemony had imprisoned thousands of non-compliant individuals from quarantined worlds here. Today, they would be freed. On the station's surface, Commander Jiho led the ground assault. His team moved efficiently through the crystalline corridors, disabling security systems rather than destroying them. Cell Block C secured, Jiho reported over the comm. 53 Vril prisoners freed, moving to Block D. As they turned a corner, they encountered heavy resistance. Hegemony security forces fired high-energy weapons that melted the wall behind them. Take cover, Jiho shouted, ducking behind a support column. The firefight was intense but brief. Human weapons were less advanced but designed for one purpose: to exploit weaknesses in hegemony defense systems. The security forces fell quickly. Commander, called Lieutenant Min, kneeling beside an injured alien prisoner. This one's not Vril. The creature was small with pale blue skin and 4 eyes. It spoke in a language their translators couldn't process. Bring them with us, Jiho decided. Alliance intelligence can identify them later. By the time the evacuation was complete, they had rescued over 2,000 prisoners, representing 12 different species. 7 were unknown to the Alliance. Back. On the Vengeance, Admiral Sun received the rescued leaders in the ship's conference room. "I am Tul Nax of the Brood," said one of the new aliens, its translator now functioning. "My world was quarantined 300 years ago. When we tried to break free, the hegemony took our leaders and imprisoned us here." "Same with us," said another alien with luminescent skin. "The Glow Collective has been contained for 5 centuries. Any who resist are sent to places like Proxima." Sun listened carefully to each story. The pattern was clear. The hegemony's perfect galactic society was built on the systematic suppression of any species they deemed unpredictable. "Will you join our fight?" she asked when they had finished. Every alien agreed. The Outcast Alliance had just grown substantially stronger. Intelligence Director Hai Yu entered the conference room with an urgent report. "Admiral, we've decoded the hegemony response to our attacks. They're recalling ships from multiple sectors to reinforce the Earth blockade. The sterilization fleet has been accelerated." Sun's expression didn't change, but her voice hardened. "How long?" 2 months, maybe less." She dismissed the meeting and called her senior officers to the command center. The holographic display showed the current position of all known hegemony forces. "The situation has changed," Sun told them. "We've hurt them, but now they're taking us seriously. They're consolidating their forces for a decisive strike against Earth." "We can't match their numbers," said Fleet Commander Juntak. "No," Sun agreed. "But numbers aren't everything. The hegemony has ruled unopposed for millennia. They've forgotten how to fight an enemy that doesn't follow their rules." She pointed to key positions on the star map. "They expect us to defend Earth directly. Instead, we'll strike here, here, and here. Their supply depots, their shipyards, their command nodes." "That leaves Earth vulnerable," objected Jun. "Earth has never been more vulnerable than it is right now," Sun replied. "Our only hope is to disrupt their operations so thoroughly that they cannot coordinate an effective attack." The strategy was named Scorched Stars. While the hegemony gathered its forces, the Alliance would hit and run across dozens of systems, destroying infrastructure and sowing confusion. Over the next 6 weeks, the war expanded dramatically. The Alliance fleet, now numbering over 200 ships from 8 species, conducted lightning strikes across hegemony space. They would appear without warning, cause maximum damage, and vanish before reinforcements arrived. On the hegemony, capital world of Centrum Prime, the ruling council faced unprecedented dissent. "How can a quarantined species do this to us?" demanded council leader Vorex. "They're primitives. Primitives who have united our enemies against us," replied another, counselor. "Perhaps we underestimated their capacity for adaptation." "It changes nothing," Vorex insisted. "The sterilization fleet launches in 3 days. Once Earth is neutralized, this rebellion will collapse." But as reports of Alliance victories continued to arrive, doubt spread through the hegemony elite. For the first time in thousands of years, their perfect order faced a serious threat, and it had begun with one stubborn species that refused to accept its fate. The massive sterilization fleet assembled at the edge of the Sol system. 300 hegemony warships, the largest armada seen in 1,000 years. Their crystalline hulls caught the distant sunlight, creating a beautiful but deadly light show against the darkness of space. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Admiral Sun Kang studied the enemy formation. This was the moment everything had been building toward. The Alliance fleet, just 120 ships from 12 different species, seemed hopelessly outnumbered. "All vessels report ready, Admiral," said Commander Ji-ho, now her second in command. Sun nodded. "And the package?" "Dr. Han confirms it's operational. One shot as planned." For months, Dr. Yun Han had worked tirelessly on their final weapon, not one of destruction but of revelation. If it worked, the war might end today without further bloodshed. "Signal all ships," Sun ordered. "Execute Operation Truth." The Alliance fleet moved forward in perfect formation. At its center, the Vengeance carried their secret weapon. Surrounding it were ships from every member of the Outcast Alliance. Human vessels alongside Vril cruisers, brood carriers, and ships from 9 other quarantined species. The hegemony fleet responded immediately. Their foremost ships opened fire, filling space with energy weapons that could shatter planets. "Evasive pattern Delta," Sun commanded calmly. "All ships maintain formation integrity." The Alliance vessels danced through the barrage, taking hits but giving ground strategically. This was the plan, to draw the hegemony deeper into the system, away from their reinforcements. "Energy signatures indicate they're charging their primary weapons," Jiho reported. "Now, Commander," Sun ordered. Jiho activated the tactical system. All ships deploy countermeasures. Hundreds of small devices launched from Alliance vessels, spreading throughout the battlefield. As they activated, they created a web of intersecting energy fields. On the hegemony command ship, High Chancellor Vorex watched with contempt. "Their primitive defenses are useless," he told his officers. "Prepare the sterilization sequence." But as the hegemony ships attempted to coordinate their attack, something strange happened. Their systems began failing. Communications dropped, weapons lost power, navigation systems showed false readings. "What is happening?" Vorex demanded. His technology officer worked frantically at the controls. "Unknown energy pattern. It's interfering with our network." Dr. Han's device was working. The countermeasures weren't weapons. They were broadcasting nodes, transmitting a signal that exploited a fundamental flaw in hegemony technology. Their highly connected systems, dependent on perfect coordination, were now their greatest weakness. "All ships advance," Sun ordered. The Alliance fleet pushed forward, targeting disabled hegemony vessels with precision strikes. Not to destroy them, but to disable their engines and weapons. Within an hour, a third of the hegemony fleet drifted helplessly. "Fleet-wide transmission," Sun commanded. "On all frequencies, including hegemony emergency channels." She stood tall before the camera. "This is Admiral Sun Kang of the Outcast Alliance. Your fleet is disabled. Your sterilization plan has failed. We could destroy you now, but unlike the hegemony, we don't believe in genocide." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We've accessed your secure archives. We know the truth about the hegemony's founding, about how the original council decided that only certain types of evolutionary paths were correct, how you've systematically eliminated dozens of species that didn't fit your narrow view of civilization. On Centrum Prime, the hegemony capital, millions watched as the transmission broke through their controlled information networks. For the first time in their history, ordinary citizens saw unfiltered evidence of their leaders' actions. "We're broadcasting this evidence to every world in hegemony space," Sun continued. "The truth you've hidden for thousands of years is now visible to all." The reaction was immediate. On numerous hegemony worlds, protests erupted. Several colony governors announced they were breaking from the council's authority. 3 hegemony battle groups sent messages indicating they would not fire on Alliance ships. Chancellor Vorex's ship managed to restore partial power. He opened a channel to the Vengeance. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice no longer confident. "Justice," Sun replied simply. "An end to the quarantine system. Recognition of all sentient species as equals." "Impossible," Vorex said. "Some species are simply too dangerous for galactic harmony." "We don't want your harmony," Sun countered. "We want freedom. The freedom to find our own path. And we're prepared to fight for it. All of us together." As she spoke, more ships appeared. The second, Alliance fleet led by the Vril and 3 other species. They had successfully neutralized the hegemony reserve forces while the main battle unfolded. Vorex realized he had lost. "The Council will never agree to this." "Then the Council will fall," Sun stated. "Already your own people are questioning. 10,000 years of lies. Change is coming, Chancellor. You can lead it or be swept away by it." 3 days later, on the neutral world of Terra Nova, representatives from both the Alliance and progressive hegemony factions met. The old council had been overthrown in a surprisingly peaceful transition. New leadership, representing diverse evolutionary paths, took control. The Galactic Confederation was born that day, not a perfect union, but one built on truth rather than suppression. Earth's quarantine was the first to be lifted, As Commander Alm, Jiho and Admiral Sun watched the first official hegemony vessel land openly on Earth, Jiho asked a question. Was it worth it? All the fighting, all the losses. Sun looked at the sky where stars were now filled with possibility rather than barriers. They turned their backs on us, she said quietly. They never imagined we would fight for something bigger than ourselves. That was always their mistake.